Hello, everybody. I'm Two-Tone the Artist.
And I'm Mitch the Peach.
Welcome back to the Hills Are Silent podcast, where we chainsaw chop it up about the video games of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. This is going to be a leaned back, laid back episode. My head is pounding from work, and I'm barely breathing over here, man. Pulse
I
is
saw you
fading.
there. I'm drinking coffee at 6 o'clock, so that tells you how my day went as well. So here we are.
Anyway, come on in, man. Pull up a chair. It reclines. Pull the lever. Let's hang out, y'all, and talk some video games. All right. Mitch, I've been playing a new game this week.
Oh, yeah. Hey, new game. Let's go.
Yeah, I got a copy of The Red Star for PlayStation 2. I picked it up at the local comic book store / used game store here in Georgia. And this is an interesting one. I've heard through the grapevine that this is a good game, so I've been meaning to check it out. And it seems to be an uncommon game. And that's another reason why I wanted to pick it up for my collection as well. So typically games that are hard to come by, low print run games, especially ones that are good, are really expensive out in the used game market. So I'm actually very surprised that this game is not as sought after as I think it would be. So right now you can get the game for, I don't know, maybe about $50 or $60. I got my copy for like right around $50, which is expensive for a PlayStation 2 game.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
But when you've got games like Silent Hill 2 going for like $200-$300 on the used game market, like it could be worse. And you got games like, what are those other ones? There's Rule of Rose and Kuan and Haunting Grounds, which are all survival horror games. Those seem to be on the more valuable end, along with RPGs on PlayStation 2, JRPGs. But anyway,
a lot of those Dragon Quests, right? Is that the ones that are pretty, those older Dragon Quest games?
I don't know about the Dragon Quest ones, at least not the ones on PlayStation 2, but I think the PlayStation 1
series.
Games are really expensive. But anyway, yeah, some of those games, I mean, like Rule of Rose and Kuan, they had Kuan at the game store I went to pick up the Red Star at, and they were selling it for I think like $1,000. So I'm surprised they've gotten all of those like really rare games in a handful of times, but typically it's like disc only or the game's like missing the manual or something. So to see that they had like a complete copy of Kuan, that was a sight to behold. But there's no way in hell I'm buying that. I can easily emulate that game and keep my $1,000. Anyway, like I'm getting totally off topic. Anyway, I'm surprised this game is not more expensive because it's freaking awesome. So my buddy and I tried to play it because it's a co-op game. It's essentially like a side-scrolling beat-em-up game. I mean, you can move forward and back a little bit, but for the most part, it's a side-scrolling 3D beat-em-up. And my buddy and I tried to play it on co-op, and we couldn't even get past the first level. We tried it over and over and over again. And the thing is there's no checkpoints in the level. You have to make it all the way to the end, and if you die before you reach the end of the level, you're starting all the way over from the very beginning. So we tried about 3 or 4 times and eventually gave up. So then I went back to the game by myself to give it another go, and I got through the first level on the first try, and it was super easy. I was like, what? I don't know what was going on with me and my buddy. I mean, I think at most we had 1 beer in us. So I don't think that was the issue. But
yeah, that wouldn't have delayed your performance that much.
Yeah, seriously. So I don't know what happened. But anyway, now I'm playing it single player, and I've been flying through the game. It's not very long to begin with. I think you can beat it in like 5 hours or less. And I think there's 18 levels in total, and right now I'm on level 15. So I'm definitely going to finish it this weekend. But it's a unique game. So it is a side-scrolling beat 'em up. So you have melee attacks, but you also have a gun. So you have a ranged attack with your gun and melee for close combat. And there's a bunch of different maneuvers and combos and stuff you can do. You can swap out your gun. There's like a temporary block attack you can do, and there's a lot of strategy involved. Like you can only block certain attacks. Like melee attacks, you can block several of them, but gun attacks, you can only block a few of those before it breaks your shield. And then you have certain enemies that you can only kill with melee attacks. You have to get up close and personal. It's a lot of mix between ranged and close quarters combat and different strategies you have to take depending on the enemy you're fighting. And then throughout the level, you'll get multiple boss encounters. Sometimes there's up to like 3 bosses per level. And when you're fighting the bosses, the camera shifts into more of an overhead view. And are you familiar with bullet hell shooters?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Where it's just like a million bullets coming at you in different patterns. And the game is, in bullet hell shooters, you have all these bullets flying at you, like so many that they practically fill the screen. And they're very distinct patterns you have to memorize. So you have to weave and bob and navigate through these slow-moving bullets so you don't get hit. And at the same time, you have to simultaneously be shooting whatever enemy is just shooting all these bullets at you. So it's really cool. It's like a beat-em-up mixed with a bullet hell shooter.
Yeah, one of my favorite roguelike games actually is a bullet hell game called Enter the Gungeon, and it's very similar to that, where there's just like, it's a roguelite, so it's a dungeon crawler, but it's also bullet hell, where there's just like, you go into each room and there's so much crap coming at you at once, and you have to kind of memorize the patterns of each type of enemy.
Yeah, it's stressful, but it's fun. And typically, I'm not a huge fan of bullet hell shooters. I do like, so there's a small distinction. There's just shooters where it's the same concept, but there's not as many bullets on the screen. And then bullet hell shooters are the ones that just take it to the next level. They're like the more difficult version of those overhead shooter games. Anyway, typically I don't like bullet hell shooters, but in this game, since it's not continuously that, it switches between that and a third-person beat-em-up. I think it's refreshing, and it's just because it's very stressful. It's fun, but it's also stressful. So like only having to deal with it in small bursts is nice. And they're actually, I don't know if there's any more levels like this because I still have 4 more levels to go. But one of the levels was a straight-up side-scrolling shooter. All of a sudden, your guy gets in a spaceship at the end of one level, and the next level, you're literally doing a side-scrolling shooter. So that I enjoy games that combine multiple genres and really mix things up. So I've been loving this game. I recommend it to anybody out there. An interesting story about this game is it was finished, if I remember correctly, the game was finished in 2004. It's based on either, I think, a comic book or a cartoon. I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with the Red Star, but it's definitely something that already exists. Are you about to look it up, Mitch?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me know. I want to say it's a comic book. But anyway, the game was finished in 2004, and then the publisher went out of business before the game could be released. So it sat finished for several years, unreleased. And then eventually in 2007, another publisher bought the rights to the game and actually released it. So keep in mind.
You're right. Sorry, you're right. It is a comic book series.
Okay. So, and you also have to keep in mind, it was released in 2007 for the PlayStation 2. The Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 had already been out for several years. So the PlayStation 2 player base was dwindling. So that's one of the reasons why this game's hard to come by. It was just a late release for the PlayStation 2, and I'm sure not a lot of copies were made, and not a lot of people probably bought this game. But yeah, it's awesome. I recommend it, and I'll let you guys know when I finish it.
Solid. I've been playing some games too. I've been playing one in particular, but before we go there, I want to give a shout out to your mom. I meant to do this at the beginning of the podcast, but I'm going to give her a shout out now because I am repping one of the shirts. She sent me some money with my SSD that accidentally got sent to you guys, thanks to my dad. shipping out one of my packages to you guys accidentally, but she gave me some money, and it was very nice of her. She told me to buy some T-shirts for the pod, and I'm rocking one today. I got a nice Kirby shirt this time around, and the next pod I'll have another one that I bought as well.
Okay, I like that Kirby one. That one's cool.
Yeah, this one's pretty nice. It's pretty comfy too. Good material. Good shout out to GameStop for their clearance section. They've got some good stuff in there.
Yeah. Surprisingly, GameStop has a good shirt selection. Well, they have a good selection of cool looking shirts, but every time I go there, they never have my size. They always have like extra small and extra large. I'm just like, who's buying all the mediums and larges? Like, can I just get one of these shirts?
I was surprised because I saw this in the clearance. I'm like, it's probably going to be, like you said, an extra large or an extra small, but they had like every size. I was like, all right, nice.
Yeah, sometimes that clearance section of GameStop, there can be some treasures in there. I got an Umbrella keychain from Umbrella Corporation keychain for Resident Evil. I've had that thing for years. I love it. I never lose my keys. Now with
there
that
you go. No, definitely not. It's too distinguishable.
Yeah, and anytime people always recognize it too. I've had people make comments about it at the gym. I remember one time I was getting my car valet parked, and the valet handed me my keys, and he was like, "Nice keychain." So I know he plays Resident Evil, or at least knew what it was.
I was walking down the street maybe a couple weeks ago, and it is really recognizable because some guy had a bumper sticker that was just the Umbrella logo on it, and I was like, hey, like, just pointed out immediately. I'm like, nice.
Yeah.
Or a Resident Evil fan. But yeah, so shout out to your mom again. Thank you so much. I know you listen to the pod, so yeah, be on the lookout for my next week's shirt because that is another one that I got as well.
Cool.
But switching gears, going to the game that I have been playing lately, and this one is an interesting game. I know you said it was very interesting. You were looking forward to me talking about it, but it is called Dredge. And Dredge is published, or it's published by Team 17, which you're familiar with. Team 17, they publish the Worms games, which are some of my favorite games we've talked about in a previous pod as well. But it's developed by a New England studio called Black Salt Games. And I didn't see anything else that they've created before, so this might be their first game. I'm not certain. But it's gotten really good reviews, and I'm pleased to say that I am having a lot of fun with it to start here. I haven't gotten too far into it, but I've gotten enough where I do have a lot to talk about with it. So essentially, Dredge is a fishing game. It's mainly a fishing game, but there's a big adventure centered around your fishing. You're a fisherman who sails to a coastal town of Greater Morrow is what it's called, situated in a distant land, and essentially you take up a job to be the town's local angler. And as the angler, the previous one left for unknown reasons. They're kind of vague as to why he left, but then you soon find out that there is some very scary stuff going on in this town at night. And with that being said, the game takes place in a day-night cycle. And I know you were talking about how your game is pretty stressful that you've been playing. Dredge can get very stressful as well. With a day-night cycle, everything you do when you start fishing, or if you're even sailing around the land, the time ticks and the day goes by. So, and it doesn't seem like it takes that long, or at least I don't feel like I can get a lot done during that time. I can do a little bit of fishing, a little bit of navigating, and then I need to hightail it back to a dock. Because once it gets nighttime, it gets super foggy in this island, and basically your guy the angler has a fear meter, and once it gets too dark and he can't see, his fear starts going up. And these creatures, they're almost like mythical water creatures of some sort. They feast on that fear, and they are trying to come and take him out on his boat. And so
every time it's very stressful. It can be stressful at times because I'm out there fishing, trying to maybe complete quests and catch specific fish, or maybe go and deliver something to another island in the main region. But then I realize, oh crap, it's getting dark. I need to hightail it back because these like swamp monster things are coming to take out my boat. And so there's a lot of that going on. The day-night cycle thing is very interesting, a very cool dynamic with it. As far as the fishing aspect, which I think is like the main, I guess the fishing aspect is the main thing that's centered around this game. It is actually a lot of fun. Essentially what you do is you stick, you put your reel in, and then there's like a wheel that rotates around. There's little green checks, and you have to like basically press A or X or whatever, and in those check marks as it shuffles around the circle, and that makes your reel go up faster, and then you catch the fish. But along with the fish themselves, you sell those fish for money. And then you use that money to upgrade your boat, to make it faster so you can move around the land quicker, to maybe upgrade your reels, because each different fishing pole that you have is better for different types of waters, whether it's ocean, whether it's coastal, whether it's shallow. So there's a ton of like stuff that's like centered into this like basic fishing game, to where there's almost like there's also like a big kind of grand story in it. And I think from what I looked up, there is a good ending and a bad ending with it. And I don't know how I get either of those. I guess I'll find out as I move along, but another interesting wrinkle into that. And I think the other thing I want to talk about and go back to the fishing aspect, each fish takes up a certain part of your inventory. So I think I was telling you off the pod, it kind of reminds me of like a Resident Evil inventory system type thing, where each type of fish, or each type, whatever you're collecting, it could be materials, fish, trinkets that you collect underwater, whatever, it all takes up a certain amount of inventory slots, like a certain amount of space, and they have different shapes and sizes. So like you kind of have to do a Tetris kind of thing and see if you can fit everything in your inventory, because you want to fit as much as you can on your run before it gets dark out. Then you come back and essentially sell everything, or you use it for upgrades or whatnot. So I thought it's kind of fun to try and like Tetris stuff around to try and fit it into certain areas and get as much on your ship as you can, or on your boat. So I think that's a cool thing with it. There's a whole bunch of other stuff, like the fish themselves. There's a ton of like cool stuff with like the fish. There's different rarities of fish. There are fish that are like, I guess they're like warped fish, or like almost like they call them like aberrations, or like just warped, not normal looking fish that cost more money if you sell them. And you get an encyclopedia of a whole bunch of fish that you collect. So there's a lot of like different reasons to be interested in the game and to play the game, whether it's like just the catching the fish aspect, the dredging part of it, where you actually like go and collect like trinkets and lost stuff under the water, the doing quests for the people on the islands, sailing around and discovering new islands and new areas, and which ultimately gives you new fish and whatnot. So yeah, honestly, I'm really pleased with the game. I think it's been a lot of fun, and just the fishing itself was addicting. And I know, as you know, I've talked about, I'm a big fan of fishing games like Animal Crossing. So yeah, it was right up my alley. But looking forward to playing more. That's Dredge. It just came out pretty recently and has pretty favorable reviews on Steam. So yeah, I'm having a good time with it.
It's sitting at overwhelmingly positive right now, with close to 10,000 reviews. It's funny, my buddy Dario, he always tells me, he's like, I'll just buy anything that has an overwhelmingly positive review on Steam. I was like, that's one approach to picking your games. But yeah, it says it was released March 30th, and it's only $25, so it's not going to break the bank.
No, I feel like you really get your money's worth with $25. You think it's just a simple fishing game, but then when you get into it, there's just so much more in the world that they created and the quest line that they've kind of centered around this mechanic of fishing or dredging through, the water to get, whatever you're looking for and to help the people that live on the island.
And the art style is cool. It's almost got like a water painting look to it. And
I actually noted they got inspiration on their art through games like Frostpunk, if you're familiar with that, or Papers, Please is another one. I think they said that they had, which I've played a little bit of Frostpunk, and it does that. The cutscene art style very much reminds me of that.
And yeah, it's showing scenes during nighttime, and I see all the sea monsters you're talking about. Release the Kraken!
Yeah, it's creepy. Like it scares. Like I'm just sitting there like in the dark at night playing this game, and like it gets dark in that game, and like all these like pink eyeballs start coming out of the water, and it's just the scariest thing because I'm like I can't see anything. It's all misty, and like I only have a little light that can like guide me to where I need to get back to the dock. And then out of nowhere, this big sea monster, whatever the heck it is, Kraken, comes and just like takes a bite out of my boat, and my boat's damaged. I'm limping trying to get back to the dock. And it can get a little stressful, a little freaky. Like I feel like I'm always on a time limit to go out and then come back so I don't get eaten. Super cool.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have a natural fear of the water, the sea, and underwater creatures. It kind of reminds me of Dying Light, where it's like you got to do everything you can during the day because as soon as nightfall comes, it's way more dangerous. You don't even want to be out. I think even really Final Fantasy 15 was like that. It's been a while since I played that, but I think in that game you want to get inside or in a town when nighttime comes because that's when the really strong, powerful enemies come out. So yeah, a couple questions.
Sure.
Did you buy this on Steam or did you get it? Is it on Game Pass? Xbox Game Pass?
I bought it on Xbox. I didn't. It's not a Game Pass game. Maybe it'll come to Game Pass and I will regret buying it. But I was really interested in it when it came out, so I was like, I'll support the developers. And $25, I thought it would be a fun one to play, and I think it's been well worth it.
Yeah. And how did you find out about this? Because I didn't hear about this game at all.
Yeah, I was actually listening to another video game podcast that, and they were. Yeah, I know. I'm cheating on our own podcast here. No,
man, it's all right. That's how you spread your knowledge. That's the point of these podcasts, to just get information out there and learn about new cool games to check out.
Absolutely, and they had really been hyping this up, and they were kind of talking about that inventory aspect and how it was really fun to catch these fish and try and fit them in your inventory so you can get a full run on your boat before you go back. That's how I figured it out, and again, don't regret buying it.
Yeah, and this is a cool, unique idea. Some people could claim that every video game idea has been done to death and people are just remaking the same games over and over again. We're 1,000 sequels deep and a lot of franchises. So it is very refreshing when something like this comes around where it's unique. Sure, it might have some mechanics or some inspiration from other games, but yeah, I've never heard of anything like this or played anything like this. And just the idea of like a single player story driven fishing game, it's not something that you would think of or something you'd come across in many games.
Yeah, they combined a lot of really cool aspects as far as like the fishing aspect, the exploring, the interacting with people that live on these islands, to like almost treasure hunting for some of your quests and dredging like far down into the ocean to try and find trinkets or keys or something that leads into more of the story that you unfold as you play the game. So a lot of cool aspects, and I'm really looking forward to like you can upgrade your boat obviously to get faster. To get stuff that make, gears or whatever that makes you faster or a little more durable or more inventory space. And so I'm really looking forward to when I'm fully upgraded and can really dive in and go around the island or the entire map as fast as I want to, because right now I can only go a certain speed, and so it doesn't give me a lot of time to explore before I'm like, oh crap, I gotta get back, man. This thing's gonna come get me. Like,
so are you able to fight the monsters at night, or can you only just run from them?
I've not been able to fight them yet, but I did just right before we started the pod. I unlocked this one perk by advancing into the story. I think I found a key underwater, and I delivered it to the guy called the Collector, or something along those lines. And I gave it to him, and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna open this, magic book, and I'm gonna give you a perk." And he gave me this perk where like I can like almost like have a turbo and move through the water like a lot faster for a certain amount of time at the expense of like my boat can get damaged more easily or something like that. So I'm wondering if there's other perks along the way that might be able to help me, fight off these creatures at night.
We'll see.
Yeah. Highly recommend if you're looking for something. I thought it was going to be more chill, and it's really not that. It's a bit more stressful than I thought, but still highly recommended if you're a fan of like fishing games, or even just exploring.
So, fishing, even though this game is very unique, fishing has been done in other games before. So it's been just a small part of certain games, and there are also fishing games, like realistic ones. So I'd like to kind of dive into that. So what is your earliest memory, or maybe just your favorite memory of playing a game that has fishing in it?
Yeah, I've talked about it before, probably multiple times at this point, but Animal Crossing, I even mentioned it just a little bit ago, but Animal Crossing is probably my earliest memory of fishing in a game and just being enamored by the whole concept of it. As simple as it is, it became one of my favorite things, and it really is what got me addicted to Animal Crossing to begin with on GameCube back when I was a middle schooler. My friend Tim and I he'd bring over his GameCube, because obviously it was the first one was on the GameCube, and he'd bring over his GameCube, and we had our own separate towns in Animal Crossing. And a big thing is like you just go and you'd fish in the ocean area that they had in Animal Crossing. And they had different rarities of fish that cost a different amount of bells that you could sell to Tom Nook, who would price gouge you for everything. And so fond memories of me and Tim, him having his plugged in on one TV and mine having mine on another TV, and just shouting if we caught one of the rare fish you can get. Like I think a red snapper was more expensive, or like I think a bared knife jaw. I don't know. I remember all these fish. They were like the more expensive ones that you could sell, and it would help you pay off your house that Tom Nook has charged you millions of bells for. So yeah, that's definitely one of my fondest memories. And even nowadays, though, like the fishing in that, it's so simple. It's just you cast you see the shadow of the fish underneath the water. You line up your reel so that you put it in front of the fish, so the fish will go up to it and take a nibble out of it. And then you just wait, and the fish will keep nibbling it, and then you'll press A or X or whatever whenever the bobber goes under the water, and then basically that's it. You catch the fish. It's a very simple concept, but it's super addicting to just not know what you're gonna catch, and then you pull it up and you might get this big old shark that comes out or something like that. And I know I've talked about it previously, but even nowadays with Animal Crossing New Horizons on the Switch, it's like my favorite bedtime game because the fishing is just so relaxing, and I just kind of chill in my bed with my Switch and just cast a line here or there for about 20-30 minutes, and I'm like, you know what, it's time for bed. I'm feeling good. But yeah, that's definitely my best memory, and there's so much nostalgia with Animal Crossing, and a lot of it centers around the fishing aspect. What about you?
I remember the fishing in The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. So at some point, there's some tiny little pond you come to, and there's a cabin next to the pond, and you can go in there, and I think the guy either gives you a fishing rod or lends one to you, and then you come out of the cabin, and then you go to the pond, and you can fish. And again, it is very relaxing. And if you catch a fish, you can bring it back to him, and he'll weigh it for you and tell you how well you did or how big of a catch you had. And if I remember correctly, if you catch a fish bigger than the current record that they have at the fishing hut or cabin or whatever, then you get some prize. So I remember being a little kid and just trying over and over and over and over again and just getting all these tiny fish and being like, dang it, but being so persistent. And then recently I've been replaying through The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time on my Nintendo 3DS, which is actually a really good port of that game. They improved the graphics some and did some other small improvements to the game. But that's a great way to play, and it's just cool to play it in 3D. So while playing it in that, I caught the bigger fish much faster. So I don't know if they intentionally tweaked the game, because like I said, they made some small improvements to it, or if I was just lucky this time around. But yeah, that's like the earliest I remember fishing in a game, although I'm sure there's probably something on the original Nintendo Entertainment System or the Sega Genesis that had fishing.
Yeah, your example with Zelda kind of brings you back to Animal Crossing, and Animal Crossing all operates on real time. So like whatever time it is now where you live, that's what time it is in the Animal Crossing town. And whatever day it is in Animal Crossing is what day it is in real life. So when I was on the GameCube version, I would time it because like certain weeks of the year they would have fishing competitions on Animal Crossing, and you would you'd show up in one of the, I can't remember, I think his name was like Chipper or something. He's he's the fishing guy. He comes and you see him in the town, you're like, oh yeah, fishing competition. And you could win like prizes in Animal Crossing for catching the biggest fish, or the biggest type of fish that they request, like if it's a bass or whatever. So yeah, that was a good time too.
So, I have a real life fishing story to tell. So I have not gone fishing in years. I think it was probably, I want to say 2009, the last time I went fishing. So it's been 14 years since I've gone fishing. And that's intentional. Yeah, I used to go fishing with my dad every now and then. I remember fishing with my grandpa once and catching a decent-sized catfish. Although, I'm pretty sure he caught the catfish and then handed me the rod and was like, oh, look, you caught a fish. Because it was almost instantaneously after he handed me the fishing rod that I realized I had caught something. So I think, rest in peace, Grandpa, but if you were doing that just to give me the experience of catching a fish, that was very nice of you.
But I say catfish are they're tough ones to get out of the water and catch in general. They're very aggressive, so I'm gonna guess that that was the case.
Yeah, he helped me after that. After handing me the rod and after I realized I had something, he came over and helped me reel it in. But anyway, yeah, so in 2009 I went fishing with one of my buddies, and I caught a fish, a real tiny one. And when I pulled it out of the water, the hook had gone in its mouth and out of its eye. And the fish was still alive, of course. It's not just going to die instantaneously because you caught it. And I panicked because it looked horrible. And I knew this fish was just in excruciating pain, and he's got a freaking hook in his mouth and out his eyeball. So I panicked and I tried to pull the fish hook out of the fish. Now, I don't know if you remember what fish hooks look like, but they're meant to go in and not out. That's the whole way that you catch the fish. They're pronged so that they can't be yanked out easily. So me trying to yank it out, I had to put a lot of force into it, and I ended up ripping it out of the fish. and it was so brutal. The fish was too small for me to keep and eat anyway, so I ended up just throwing it back in the water. And I was like, what was the point of that? That wasn't fun. I ruined that fish's day. Like, for real. Like, he's not going to survive that. He's going to die. And for what? Just because I wanted to be out there doing that?
Fun.
Like, yeah, I was like, man, as a young adult at this point, I was like, maybe this isn't for me. And then on my way home, my car broke down. And I was like,
karma to me.
This has got to be karma for what I did to that fish. And yeah, I mean, my car broke down to where it was totaled. Like I had to call a tow truck to come take it away forever. Like my engine was screwed. So yeah, that was the last time I ever fished in real life.
And that was your real life fishing story, sponsored by Bass Pro Shop.
For real.
Not really. We're not sponsored.
But yeah, so speaking of real fishing, Animal Crossing and The Legend of Zelda are obviously way fictionalized, cartoonish games. There's nothing realistic about them. But surprisingly, over the years, there have been so many fishing games released, like actual sport fishing games. Just like how you got NBA 2K coming out every year, or NFL Madden coming out every year, you got Bass Pro Shops fishing like every year, whatever it is. I don't even know if they're Bass King or whatever these games are called. And I always wondered, who is buying these? Who is playing these? Like, who was like, oh man, it's the weather's bad outside. I can't go fishing in real life. I'll just stay in today and play a fishing video game. So if one of our listeners plays these fishing games, please email us, give us the details. What is the appeal to these? Because this just does not seem like something that would translate well to a video game.
Yeah, I don't want ultra realistic fishing. I don't want to see your horror story of the fish with his eyeball out in my video game.
And a lot of these fishing games were released on the Sega Dreamcast. For some reason, out of all the consoles, that was the one that was just like the hotbed of fishing games. So much so that I remember Sega releasing an official fishing rod controller. And yeah, you just plugged it into your Sega Dreamcast just like any other controller, and it looked like a fishing rod without the pole. It was just like the handle part, and it had a reel that you could reel it in. And I remember seeing this in the stores back when Sega Dreamcast was new and still in stores. And it just blew my mind. I was like, who is this for? Who is that die-hard of a video game fishing fan that they're buying this fishing reel controller? But I have to say, even though it doesn't appeal to me, the technology is pretty cool. Because it had, I don't know, maybe a gyroscope or whatever, something that you would actually be able to flick it, and it would, depending on how hard you flicked it, would, in the game, throw out your line. And then I think it had rumble or whatever to kind of go with you reeling the fish in. But I got a picture of it up on the screen now if anybody's watching this. But if not, if everyone's just listening in, like I said, it just looks like the handle. It's got an analog stick right in the middle, a couple of buttons, and then the thing you reel on the side. And yeah, it blows my mind how many compatible games there were for this. Because I was just complaining the other week that on PlayStation 2, they released the GunCon 2 light gun, and there's maybe 5 games tops that actually supported it. And then on the original Xbox, there's only, I think, 3 games that support the light gun on that. And then on Sega Dreamcast, there was only like 3 or 4 games that supported the light gun. But yet, the freaking fishing controller, there's like 10 games that support it. I'm just like, what? So here's a quick list. There's... Okay, this is an interesting name, too. Bass Rush Dream. Eco Gear Power Worm Championship.
Oh, God.
That is one game. That is the name of one game. I did not just name off 5 games. That's one game. Bass Rush Dream Eco Gear Power Worm Championship. Released in the year 2000.
That sounds like a Kingdom Hearts game name.
What the heck? Was this released in the U.S.? That's what I want to know.
That can't be. That has to be a Japanese release.
It was only released in Japan. Okay.
Yeah.
Of course. Japanese games have the wildest names.
Yep.
Then the other one is Lake Masters Pro, Dreamcast Plus. And then there's Real Fishing Wild, Sega Bass Fishing, Sega Bass Fishing 2, Sega Marine Fishing. So, I mean, these things must have been selling because they're making sequels and all that stuff. So, somebody's buying this stuff. And then this is what's interesting to me. In addition to all these fishing games, the controller is also compatible with Soul Calibur, the fighting game, for some reason. Not quite sure how that works. And, let's see here.
It was like a Wiimote.
Yeah, I thought there was some information about how it worked in Soul Calibur, but I'm not seeing it. And yeah, that's another. And then years later, this is what's interesting to me. It was discovered that Virtua Tennis supports the fishing controller. And this is just somebody stumbling upon that. There's no, it's not like in the manual or anything.
Sure.
And I don't think this was discovered until like 2014 or something. I don't remember. The year was in here somewhere. But anyway, yeah, they realized that that motion sensor that is supposed to throw the reel out, you can actually use that to hit the tennis ball. And depending on how hard you swing it, will control how hard your character is hitting the tennis ball in this game. I don't know if this was actually by design or if it just was a coincidence that the way Virtua Tennis worked just happened to line up perfectly with this.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was like the Wii remote before the Wii remote. All right, so here's some comparisons in this article that are between Wii Tennis and Virtua Tennis using the fishing rod controller. And Wii Tennis has forgiving sensitivity, so you can be played without too much force. But Virtua Tennis, unforgiving sensitivity, makes you really swing that rod hard. Wii Tennis character movement, no, it does that for you. Virtua Tennis, you have the thumbstick on the controller, so you actually can control your character with the thumbstick.
I'm wondering, how many TVs were broken with the Wiimotes. I wonder how many TVs were broken with this, if you're having to put that much force behind it.
Yeah. Oh my god, they got a video of somebody playing it. That's hilarious. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. And, Mitch, I sent some links that I want you to check out. Dug up some old advertisements for the Sega Dreamcast fishing controller. And they're weird. I think we forget how weird old video game commercials were. Especially like Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. And
yeah.
I guess Sega Dreamcast is no exception.
This one, the Get Bass Sega Dreamcast one, is wild.
Ah, the Dreamcast. I miss you so. There's one more. Let me see the second one. Yeah, for those just listening, the first one, some woman was like outside for some reason with the Sega Dreamcast fishing rod controller, and she ends up wrangling some guy and pulling him in. And it's all real people too. It's not like video game graphics. Just weird stuff. Man, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to pick up the fishing game for Dreamcast.
Yeah, again, like looking at the Sega bass fishing one, it just reminds me of like dive bars where those fishing games would also be at the dive bars that you could play, and I feel like that's the only people who ever play those if you're at a dive bar. Like I don't know who's buying these. So yeah, I also am very curious.
Yeah, if you're drunk at the bar, you got Cabela's Hunting 2004, Sega Bass Fishing, and what's the other one? Golden Tee, all
Golden
lined up
Tee.
next to each other. What do you want to play?
Yep. Yep, that's the classic trio of dive bars, that's for sure.
Yeah, my fiance and I were just at the bar last weekend, and it's Chicago Bears themed, of all things, in Atlanta, Georgia.
Wow.
So that was pretty interesting. But yeah, they had one arcade game there. It was a very tiny dive bar. Food was amazing. They had one arcade game, and it was Golden Tee.
Yep. I mean, those things got popular somehow, and I'm sure people are still playing them a lot to this day.
Yeah. And I wonder how they work. Because they're connected to the internet, and some of them even advertise you can do online play. Which makes me ask the question, are there enough people on Golden Tees in random bars around the country that you can actually get matched up with somebody online? Like, how many people are on those servers at any given moment? I would love to know that.
I bet there's nobody playing online on that. I think there's only people playing for like the high score on certain holes. That's what I usually see, like the running high score thing at Jim at Buffalo Wild Wings in East Peoria. He's got the high score.
But that's cool to me that they're connected to the internet. Because you can see the high score not only of the people who've been playing in the bar that you're in on the machine that you're playing on, but you can see all around the country who has the high score. It is cool that you can play against other people online, even though there's probably nobody on those servers frequently enough to actually get a matchmaking going. And it's probably easy for them to push updates to all of these Golden Tees and all these bars, like new courses or new characters and stuff like that. It's probably very useful from the developer standpoint on having these internet connected. But yeah, I've been at arcades that have internet connected machines, and like they'll have like Virtua Fighter or maybe Tekken or Street Fighter, some type of fighting game. And yeah, I could never get in a lobby, even when I try.
No, I think the part of the fun of like any arcades like where you can play against somebody is like playing against them in the arcade itself.
In person.
Like I remember like in the arcades here in Chicago, I would go and we'd play this game called Killer Queen, and it's like a cooperative game. It's like a 4-on-4 type game, and it's all about like finding a different way to either kill their queen, or there's like 3 different ways you can win, but it's a very fun game that I always play when I'm at the arcades.
I've never even heard of that. I'm looking at the video
they actually
now.
have it on Steam, but there's nobody that plays it on Steam, and it's always packed when I go to bars.
I'm looking at the website now.
There's 3 ways to win. You either move the snail all the way to the end, you kill one controlled person is the queen on each team, and that queen can fly around the map and kill all the worker ants, or the worker bees can put the honey into in the comb, and if you fill up the comb all the way before the other team, you win. So there's 3 different ways. You can either kill their queen 3 times, you can move the snail all the way to your side before they do, or you can fill the combs with honey.
Their promotional video has very little gameplay. It's just people talking about the game. Kind of would like to see it in action.
You need to see it in action because
But yeah, it's some huge like arcade thing. So it says it's a 10-player arcade game. Wow.
Okay, 5-on-5. Yeah.
And you can buy a cabinet off their website for $15,000.
What a bargain.
Yeah.
If I was made of money, sure.
Yeah. I mean, if you had a bar, you probably make that back.
Yeah.
Killer Queen. Hey, I just want to see some gameplay.
Look up Killer Queen Steam. I bet you can find some gameplay.
Okay.
Or even on Steam. I think they shut down their servers on Steam because nobody played it.
But
my friends and I had to play a little bit on it.
I found Zombies, a Killer Queen remix.
Oh. Let me see if I can...
So it's like a 2D game?
Yes. Side-scrolling.
That's cool, man. Yeah, it seems just to be probably a game that's meant to be played in person with a group of people.
Yeah, it's when a lot of the Steam reviews are more saying like it's a great in-person party game, but I don't need to play it online or something like that. Which
this one only has 4 user reviews, and it's been out for like 2 years, so I don't think too many people on Steam are even aware of it.
No, I don't think it was marketed that well. I only knew about it because of the arcade, really. Yeah, there are some videos on Steam. It's Killer Queen Black, and you can see a little bit of video on it.
Interesting. Oh, all right, man. We got one more topic to go over before we end this episode. And...
the big one.
Huh?
I say it's a big topic.
It's sad topic. Unfortunately, a sad topic. So, here at the Hills Are Silent podcast, we're always upset when games get delisted.
Delisted game alerts.
And a game we just talked about recently, which Mitch actually recommended to me just a few episodes ago, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2, he told me, he's like, you should check it out. It's a great game. It used to be on Xbox 360. That's where Mitch played it. And then he said it was re-released as like a HD remaster bundle with both the first and the second game on Steam, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4. So I was like, all right, man, I'll go check it out. Went to check it out. Sure enough, it no longer exists on any of those platforms. So the game was originally released in 2015 on Xbox 360. Is that correct? That can't be right. Is that right?
Did you say 2016?
2015. That sounds pretty late in the Xbox 360's life. Alliance. Maybe that's when the second one came out? Okay. Wikipedia says it was released in 2006.
Yep, that sounds way more right. Because I definitely played it in the heyday of the Xbox 360 lifecycle.
Okay. Excuse me. I'm looking at the wrong thing. That was the date it was delisted from Xbox 360. So it was delisted from the digital storefront on Xbox 360. It was released both physically and digitally, but it was delisted digitally in 2015. And then in 2016, it was re-released as that HD bundle with both games on PlayStation 4, Steam, and Xbox One. And exactly 2 years later, it was delisted in 2018, down to the day. July 26, 2018. So what I'm assuming is that, I guess it's Activision that published this game. I'm assuming they signed, with all these superhero-based games, they have a limited time that they can license these characters. So I'm assuming Activision probably signed a 2-year deal with Marvel to re-release this game, and then as soon as that licensing agreement expired 2 years later, they pulled it from all the digital storefronts. Which to Activision probably is not a big deal because, for one, they sold the game on the Xbox 360 and I believe the PlayStation 3. And then here they had an opportunity to relicense and resell the game, and I'm sure most of the copies that were gonna get sold were sold within those 2 years. So, but still, it's sad that now at this point, you can no longer get this game, not on the Xbox 360 marketplace, not on Steam, not on PS4, not on Xbox One. If you want this game anymore, you got to go hunt down an old used Xbox 360 copy.
Yeah, if you want my copy, it's going to cost you. I'm sad about it. I'm really curious about the online servers now because John, my buddy John, who I think I shout out every podcast these days, him and I, as I've talked about in the past, played this game a lot growing up, and we actually have played it more recently whenever him and I game together on Xbox with the new bundled edition, or the newest bundled edition on Xbox One. So really curious to see if it just got delisted, but they kept the servers up and running, or you just can't play online anymore.
Yeah, check if the servers are still up, and also check if LAN is supported. Because as long as a PC game still has LAN support, you can work around that to get it back online to play co-op.
Yeah, but if we have it on the 360, or I mean, if we have like the Xbox copy, I don't know if we can. There's a workaround.
Oh, yeah. That's right. You said you had an Xbox One copy, not the PC copy.
Nope.
Yeah, no dice there.
No dice, unfortunately.
So anyway, like we've talked about on a previous episode when we covered some delisted games, is that when games become delisted, if anybody has a Steam key that they never redeemed and redeemed with their Steam account, meaning it's still redeemable, people will really, really hike up the price of that key, because now you have something, it's supply and demand. You got something that's very, very rare, and there's people that want it. So before, we covered the game Clive Barker's Jericho, which that was delisted years ago as well. And I think we saw on G2A.com, which is a site where a lot of people sell unredeemed Steam keys. I think it was going for, I don't know, what was it, like $200-$300?
Yeah, I thought it was a few $100s.
Yeah, and not worth it at all. But this Marvel Ultimate Alliance bundle Steam key is on G2A. It is selling for $2,785.50. These people are asking for over $2,000 for this unused Steam key for this game. Who is going to pay that?
Someone with too much money that they don't know what to do with. But yeah, I mean, I want to know, how did this person who's selling this key come to the dollar figure where he is like, yeah, I think it's worth $2,785.50. Like, there's not even like there's no other like key on here that I can see to like, maybe like he was like driving the price like 50 cents under the next person or something like that.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe there is a way that you can see what the last one sold for.
Maybe that's because it's a very random price to throw
really
out there.
Offers, man, that's crazy though. You could just go out and buy you can get an Xbox 360 for, I don't know, $70-$80, and then a copy of Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2 for maybe $30-$40, and you can buy that 10 times over before you would need to spend over $2,000 on a key to play it on Steam.
I don't know if somebody's been listening to our podcast and maybe swiping some keys, but I'm looking at Clive Barker's Jericho again because I was very curious, and that is now up to $1,000.
What? What?
Yeah. Same on G2A.
Clive Barker. You're right. What the heck? $1,000 for Clive Barker's Jericho?
And it's not like it's just like a random seller. This is a seller with 100% positive feedback and it looks like over 26,000 sales.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they know what they're doing.
Yeah. What the heck? Exactly, like, how do they know what to charge? And
what happened to make this go up in price from where we just talked about it a couple months ago on?
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's wild.
A lot of people listening to the Hills Are Silent podcast, I guess.
Yeah. With money.
With money.
Got some rich listeners and viewers.
We're looking for sponsors, so
yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's sad to see these games delisted because you can't get them anymore. And then the only people you can get it from are resellers asking for an arm and a leg to play this game. But I appreciate you recommending this game, but maybe I'll stumble across an old 360 copy when I'm hitting up the used game stores around town.
Definitely your best bet now because I don't think you're shelling out 2K for.
No, not at all.
It's not worth 2K either. Great fun game to play, have a few drinks with your buddy, and do a little co-op, but not 2K's worth.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, that was the last thing we wanted to cover. I think we can wrap the episode here. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks again. If you made it all the way to the end, you can check us out on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're already watching us as well.
True. Yeah, just
wherever that may be.
You're watching us. Yeah, that's totally fine. So you can also find us on our social media handles. Our TikTok is at the Hills Are Silent Podcast. Our Instagram is Instagram/Hills Are Silent. Our Twitter is at the Hills Are Silent. Our YouTube again is at the Hills Are Silent. Special shout out to Typo, one of my good friends, for commenting on all our videos and providing some good feedback. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and send them to hillsarsilent@gmail.com. Let us know if you're playing any of those fishing games because we're really curious on who the heck is. We'll catch you on the next episode.